curriculum that I'm sort of putting in place, not only for myself, but for other educational systems as well. Now, you've all seen the diagram on the left-hand side, which is my little 3 circles: health, thinking, moving, and eating. What then goes into each of those is a little curriculum. It's a little pyramid, and there's a reason it's a pyramid, which I'll explain in a second. But I'll sort of, I guess, build this up a little bit. And a lot of people that I work with, they are, let's just say 35 plus, possibly you could even say 40 plus. They've possibly done a lot of exercise or haven't done a lot of exercise. They then come to me either wanting to get fit or they're injured and they don't want to be injured anymore. And then I go on all these courses that sort of talk about injuries and health and fitness, but the people on the courses are already healthy, fit trainers. So what kind of gets lost in that information is the actual structure to work through. Now, has anyone heard of a type of training called HIIT training before? Anyone heard that? Just a quick show of hands, HIIT training. H-I-I-T training, right. So we kind of know what HIIT training is, and HIIT training apparently is very good for helping people lose weight. Now, if you go to a scientific journal and you read through it, you will see, and it will say in the conclusion, something along the lines of, this type of training will help mobilize fat stores. Therefore, everyone goes, brilliant, great. Then it must be true, because a scientific journal says that. So from a metabolic standpoint, yes, HIIT training is great. But when we look at this, if we just look at this here, so down at the bottom here, so the foundation to that pyramid is movement training, which is made up, I say, of 8 fundamental movements and 5 core skills. Fundamental movements being lifting, walking, running, twisting, pushing, pulling, very, very basic. Then you've got 5 core skills. So if I take one of these 5 core skills and I just call one joint awareness. Now obviously you've got a joint, you've got shoulder, hip, ankle, knee, awareness. So it's knowing what your shoulder's doing and it's knowing what your hip's doing and when it's doing it. Is everyone following me so far? So it's very simple. Now if we take HIIT training is very sort of explosive, it's very fast, quite dynamic. Now if we're taking a very inexperienced person and then getting them to do a very fast, dynamic, with a lot of impact in the exercise, their joint awareness, and I can ask anyone I could get anyone to do a movement, and then I'll ask them a simple question, and they'll look at me with a blank face. So what that tells me is they don't know what their body's doing. So they'll, I don't know, let's just say I was to get someone to jump from the floor onto that table. And then I said, where did you feel that working? What did you feel like was happening? And they'll go, I have no idea, I was just trying to get off the floor on that table. And that's about as far as the mental capacity goes for these people. Now, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that. All it means is if we're talking about HIIT training, we're talking about what's up here. If we're talking about joint awareness, what is your knee doing when you jump? What's your hip doing? Can you feel this muscle working? Can you feel what your shoulder's doing? This is all down here. So what we have is a group of people, i.e. other professionals, teaching let's just say novices to exercise, very advanced training systems. They haven't got a foundation. So what's happening in the industry at the moment is if we turn that up onto its end, you've got a very unstable surface. So we start to then wonder why are all these people injured? Why are all these people got all these niggly pains in their shoulder and in their hip and so on and so forth? The simple reason being is they simply just haven't done this and then built towards that. And I've got a very simple exercise for you. Well, it's not even an exercise. Can everyone just lift your arm above your head? Perfect, put your arm down. Same arm, but I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. Can you now put your arm up over your head in its most safe and stable position? Go. Okay, great. Put your arms down. Now, does anyone really know what the safe and stable position is? No. So again, this is another thing that's in the industry at the moment, is you've got a bunch of people teaching people, right, lift this weight above your head, lift this weight off the floor. But then when you say, well, this is what I want you to lift this weight in this certain way, people don't know what that is. Because the most safe and stable position is, it's a little bit complicated, and I'll just go through it as quick as I can, but basically, as your arm comes over your head, what your shoulder should do is it should twist like that. So it's a bit like a, what are those things called? A spiral. It's a bit like a spiral. So as you go up over the head, it twists one way. As you go back the other way, it twists the other way. Now what that does, a bit like a towel, if you've ever wrung a towel and it goes in a spiral and it goes really tight, that's what's happening in your joint as you do that. So if you've got a bunch of people lifting a weight over their head and they don't know that position, they're potentially going to be damaging their shoulder. So what we have to do is if they then can't do that, they can get their arm to there. So remember that picture that I showed you with the guy that can only go to there and then we got him to there? We have to, before we can ask him to lift a weight, we have to make sure that he can get there. And that's based on 3 parts of the body. The shoulder joint itself, the scapula, the shoulder blade, and the top part of the spine. All of those have to be working together to be able to get that into position. So when it comes to exercise, when people are working with me, that's the type of thing that I teach them in that movement training, which is the foundation. So then when I'm asking people to lift a weight over their head or lift a weight from the floor, they know what they're doing. I might not always say this is the most safe and stable position, this, that, and the other, and put all the terminology around it, but what I will do is I will coach them that one position. And the same goes, exactly the same, for the hip. So the hip joint's the same. When your leg comes through like that, it needs to twist one way. As it comes through like that, it needs to twist the other way. And again, that's just wringing that towel, making it nice and stiff and stable. So a part of my work, and a part of the work that I'm bringing in, is making sure people learn this from the bottom up. Is that 2 minutes? So it's learning that from the bottom up, because at the moment the industry is teaching people from the roof down. Now, if you know anyone in construction and building houses, no one builds a house from the roof down. They always build it from the foundation up, and that's all I'm trying to do with regards to exercise. But unfortunately, it doesn't get taught like that. And there's a same model for eating and for thinking as well. So when I'm talking about bringing a more integrated and coherent model for health and fitness, this is the beginnings of it. And then eventually it will start to take. So this is something for more the general public, but then eventually there will be a professional training course as well.